Welcome to the St. Joseph Radio Presents live program, broadcasting to you from the Rome of the West, St. Louis, Missouri. The program that for over 30 years has brought you eloquent speakers from across the globe to help explain, clarify, and evangelize the Catholic faith. Our program covers a variety of topics relating to current issues and occurrences in our daily lives. Now, with the aid of technology, we are able to bring the gospel message to the four corners of the world, where Christ himself did say, "Those who have ears ought to hear." It is our hope at St. Joseph Radio that through these programs we can help evangelize the world and change one soul at a time. Now, here is your host to introduce today's guest and topic.
Good afternoon and welcome. You're listening to St. Joseph Radio, coming to you from St. Louis, Missouri, the Rome of the West. We are so glad to have you join us today on our program, Man to Man. My name is Mark Serafino, and to my left is my co-host, Mike Hayworth, and our special guest today, who we will introduce in a moment. But first, important business. We'd like to start with a prayer.
We'd like to invoke St. Joseph, our church father. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. O St. Joseph, whose protection is so great, so strong, so prompt before the throne of God, I place in you all my interest and desires. O St. Joseph, do assist me by your powerful intercession and obtain for me, from your divine Son, all spiritual blessings through Jesus Christ our Lord, so that having engaged here below your heavenly power, I may offer my thanksgiving and homage to the most loving of fathers. O St. Joseph, I never weary contemplating you and Jesus asleep in your arms. I dare not approach while he reposes near your heart. Press him to my name, and kiss his fine head for me, and ask him to return the kiss when I draw my dying breath. St. Joseph, patron of departing souls, pray for us. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen.
Well, so we have a special guest with us today, and June is the month of the Sacred Heart, the Immaculate Heart, and it's also the month for fathers. And as a father, and the three of us are fathers, we are honored to be a part of a month that has such special meaning in our Catholic faith.
Absolutely.
So we want to introduce you to our guest, Andrew Daub, a father, who is here from the St. Louis area and has agreed to join us in spite of all the warnings that he got.
That's right.
But he is here with us today. So Andrew, Michael and I are familiar with you, but I'm sure many of our listeners would like to know, who are you? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me on, gentlemen. I think, how much time do we have? I'm going to start with my parents' wedding, right? Is that okay? I'll start there. So I am the oldest of 12, and probably most of the training for the rest of my life came from that battleground. I would say that, right? So,
I know some of your siblings.
You do know it, yes, exactly, right? They would probably tell you I was the catalyst for that background. But what great training, wonderful, loving family that we grew up in, amazing parents, imparted, most importantly, our faith to us. And my mom, I think she would always focus on the fact that we had our faith, that we practiced it, we adhered to it, and that was the most important thing. She didn't care if we were millionaires. She didn't care if we were lawyers or doctors. That wasn't her focus. Her focus was, have I given you a faith? Have I given you an appreciation for your relationship with Christ? And do you carry it forward? And so I think that that's been instrumental in all of our lives, and all my brothers and sisters are fantastic adults now and wonderful families. And so I think my parents were successful in that approach. I went through high school here in St. Louis, the now defunct Prep North, because somebody's going to ask, where did you go to high school? So I always like to say Prep North, and they're like, never heard of it. I'm like, yeah, okay. Maybe it wasn't a school. I don't know. It's not anymore. So it doesn't really matter. I think I was the last graduating class out of there. My brother Matthew was the last graduating class out of Prep South, right? So our claim to fame is that he and I both closed down 2 high schools in St. Louis. That was pretty good. Never again did I wield that much power. So I went to high school at Prep North, went to college at St. Louis University, did Army ROTC at the same time, and eventually went to the United States Army, served in the United States Army for an extended period of time, bounced around the world, a couple different places, had the opportunity. After 9/11, I went to Germany and then came back and was stationed over at Scott Air Force Base with all these Air Force guys, right? So, which is a unique experience for an Army guy because Air Force lives it up. So we're like, holy smokes, they have actual food. And
I've heard that.
yeah, it's amazing.
Kind of makes you think about your choices.
It totally did. My dad said that too. He always said, he was an Air Force officer. So he said, I'm like, listen, Dad, I'm looking at the Army and whatever. He's like, man, you really should think about the Air Force. I'm like, no, I want an adventure. I don't just want a job. He's like, oh, gosh. So
you got an adventure.
Oh, I did. My first duty station, I was over in Korea and right below the DMZ. And we got moved up and I called him one night and I was like, it was the middle of the night back here in the States. And I said, hey, Dad, we're getting ready to move out. We're going to be gone for a while. And so make sure you have my bank account information, blah, blah, blah. And he understood. And he's like, hey, how's that adventure working out for you, champ? Yes, sir. It's awesome. So he never let me forget that. My brother also went Army, so it was very hard for my father. So did a bunch of stuff in the Army, ended up at Scott Air Force Base as a joint anti-terrorism officer, and had to make some hard decisions about what I continued to do with my life, whether I stayed in the military and whether that was the best thing for my family. Ultimately, I made the determination that it was not, and that my priority and my focus had to be on my family. And by that point, we had a sizable family. I think we had 5 or 6 children at that point. We have a total of 8 now. So, and so I made the decision to come off active duty in the military, and the Department of Defense asked me to stay on and work as a civilian. So kind of doing a lot of the same stuff, anti-terrorism, force protection, security stuff, and protection. So I've been doing that ever since, and working over at Scott Air Force Base and continuing to do that kind of mission. And it's great. I get exposure and a lot of experience that maybe a lot of people don't have at very senior levels. And so I have learned a lot from a lot of good people. I've also learned a lot from a lot of interesting other people. So about kind of how not to operate. And
Amen.
yes, sir. I mean, I think both of you men know that. So like I said, that's kind of the professional side of my life.
Okay. Tell us about your family.
My
your
family
parish.
on the personal side of my life. I have a wonderful wife, Kathy. We have 8 children. The oldest is a police officer in St. Louis County, so he's on the thin blue line every single day.
God bless him.
Yeah, he's a stud. Technically, tactically proficient. Just a great guy. Does a great job. Very calm, even keel. Total opposite of me, right? So he's very effective in his job. And then I have a couple of my young men in college, a couple more in high school, and we have one daughter, one beautiful daughter who has a bunch of protectors. And then our youngest son, William, is 4 years old, and he's an incredible blessing to us. He's born with Down syndrome, and has brought a whole different level of exposure and experience into our lives, and just really things that we thought we knew and we just realized we did not know. And so God has really used him as an instrument for learning and development for all of us. So.
Andrew, something that just occurred to me is that you told your story about your military career, and you said at a certain point you had to make a choice.
That's right.
What was best for your family? Who would know that some years later, the choice you were given, God had a plan for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was falling into place, and you cooperated with it.
Yes, sir.
And what a beautiful thing that is, so that you could be there.
Yes, sir.
For your son.
That's a great point.
For your whole family. So,
Exactly right.
God works. I mean, it's very interesting how we don't often recognize the workings that God has in our lives and the things that he does to move us. And this is certainly an instance of that.
Yes, sir.
I used to use the metaphor, if you will, of playing chess. If you think about a chessboard, every piece has its own power, if you will, and its own vulnerability. And everybody focuses on the queen. So the queen, she's the most powerful thing on the board, except that she's only powerful if the player picks her up and moves her. The rest of the time, she's sitting on the square, has all the power in the world, but something has to move her. And I feel like that same thing applies to us. Something has to move us. And are we willing to cooperate with that thing that's moving us? And that's, of course, our Lord and Savior. It's, God is moving us. So
Right.
God bless you for following that and answering that. And you would have had no idea at the time.
None.
It's interesting how you don't often know why I'm doing this, but I just feel called.
Right.
And, if you have a strong prayer life, certainly a strong foundation, a formation as you had, it's not a surprise that you would cooperate with that. So God bless you for doing that.
And I don't want to pretend, Mark and Mike, that I did it in perfect willingness, right? So
of course not. No.
over time,
human.
right?
Exactly.
I think at that point in my life, not at that point necessarily, but growing up, I was pretty confident I was going to die from the last bullet in the last battle of the last war, right? Like, so you have that mentality, you watch too many World War II movies, and then you kind of go into it. But so I don't know. I think there was a hesitancy, probably that's still latent in terms of those things that I thought I was going to do. But I think if you live every day properly, then you get those reminders that that was the right decision, and it was for God's reason.
Yes.
Right? God has reason.
I think sometimes too that those thoughts come back to you, maybe a little latent regret. They come back to you so that you'll process
That's
it
a great point.
and say, oh no, actually, I
Right.
kind of regret the thought or the excitement of the moment, but the truth is, no, that really was the best thing.
That's a great point.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So your family, obviously, we have a saying on our program that sometimes we talk about that God is first, my family and children are second, and I am third.
Yes, sir.
And that's the order that you've clearly put things in. So tell us about your family. You have 7 boys,
7 boys and one
One
girl.
girl.
Yes, sir.
and our program is called Man to Man. And the genesis of our program was really a conversation about the weaknesses, if you will, or shortcomings that we see in young men today, and it's a consequence of a lot of different things. It's social consequence, it's information consequence, it's technology consequence, but they're consequences. And there's not a clear solution. There's not a political solution.
Oh,
The solution
right.
is being able to stand up and recognize these are things that are lacking, and here are things that we could do to make training for manhood something better.
Yes, sir. Yep.
So I guess one of the things we want to know is what are the things you've done to instill a sense of manhood into your children, and actually even to your daughter, a reflection of what a true man should be.
No, that's a good point. Yeah. I was thinking about that after you and I talked the other day. What do I do to instill true manhood? What is true manhood? How do I help them interpret that? How do I constantly help myself interpret or reinterpret what true manhood is and masculinity, especially nowadays, right? I mean, it's under such assault, and nobody has a good definition for it, but apparently a lot of people have a good definition for what it is not, right? So, and I look at my sons, because I always think, am I doing this right? Have I done it wrong? Obviously, I don't think any parent gets it right all the time. And I look at my boys, at my young men, and I already know that probably in spite of a lot of my efforts or my failures or what I might perceive as successes, they are already better men than I, right? And I think, man, at the end of the day, I think there are times where over the course of my parenting, I've been immature. And I want to prove that I want them to keep up with me. I want to be hard, and I want them to be hard and all this kind of stuff. But I'll tell you what, Mark, you alluded to the priorities of our life, right? And over our fireplace, we have the crucifixion of Christ. We have the word family, and then we have the United States flag. And so our faith and our belief in God, our family, and then freedom, right? Because freedom isn't analogous simply to a country, but it is a critical aspect of our ability to recognize, practice, and provide for the other two, right? Our relationship with Christ and then our family. And so I look up that constantly. It's a big reminder right when you walk into that room. And so I've tried to prioritize it. And for me, for a long period of time in my life, maybe my relationship with Christ didn't come first. Maybe I was disconnected from my family, my siblings, or my immediate family, my wife and children. And I look at my young men, and boy, they have prioritized Christ in a way that, if envy wasn't a sin, in a way that I would be envious of, right? So,
Right.
because they are so good. I mean, they actually pursue like this relationship with him, and they go to all kinds of Bible studies. They have podcasts where they talk about God and their faith and their relationship with Christ. They go to Holy Hour and of their own volition, right? And so I'm like, all right, I'm not going to rest on my laurels, but I'm feeling pretty good, right? Like that that they are already better men than I. And I think if they ride that out, then my wife and I will have been as successful.
You think about the grace of God, that everything that you've done, all the things, the ups and the downs, that through God's grace, these are the results.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's humbling, because I look at my kids and I'm going, I don't know how that happened, right, but I'm very thankful for it.
That's exactly right. In spite of me, right? Especially today.
Yeah.
I think it's so different when we talk about the uniqueness of masculinity versus the uniqueness of femininity and what those two things are. But they've never been under such assault as they are right now. I think we clarified that. And so it makes me feel even better that my young men and my daughter now, and as she grows, are holding on to what is important, what is critical, and then their eyes are on the prize, right? Their eyes are fixed on heaven, and they're getting some of earth thrown in at the same time, because they are successful and they're well balanced and they're doing well in their academics, and great, but their eyes are on heaven first, and I like to see that, because mine weren't always, and so I like to see them doing better than I in that way.
Very good points. I just want to take a quick break to remind everyone, you're listening to St. Joseph Radio, coming to you from St. Louis, Missouri, the Rome of the West.
So that's okay. It's one of those things also, is to be thankful for the time that we exist in. One of the things that kind of keeps up in my mind is that, there's a lot of woe, is that, this time is horrible. But these hard times, they produce good results with the grace of God.
That's right. Yeah.
So all this stuff that we're going through, all the challenges that we have, I mean, we had challenges, right?
Yes, yeah.
But now our kids have even greater challenges, I believe. And I look at our generation before, going through the world wars, different aspects of how the economy was up and down, and the results they placed. They had challenges, and they did great things out of that. Well, here we are. We've had some good times.
Yes.
Gotten a little bit lazy here and there, but
right.
overall, now these times are getting a little harder. Kids are in a good spot because fathers and families are looking to our Lord and making sure that is a priority.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, we have to make sure that fathers are doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's the sad truth of what the problem we have with manhood today, is that, to your point, we've gotten a little lazy, we've gotten relaxed, and I don't think we've properly prepared our families, our loved ones,
we can always do
to
better.
Understand what real suffering is. We were kidding before the program, and I said that last night I watched Abbott and Costello in Buck Privates, which I truly did. And one of the things that stuck through is I was watching the program and I was trying to put myself back into what the people at that time would have been thinking and experiencing. And I was thinking to myself, they're not that far removed from the Great Depression.
Right.
And the stories that I would hear from my relatives about what it was like to live during the Depression. And it wasn't fun, but they were happy, and somehow they came through it. And it's because they were prepared and because they were able to meet the challenge, because in a lot of cases, many of those people, my parents, uncles and aunts, they were the children of first-generation immigrants who came here and struggled and suffered. And so fast forward now, we have immigrants still coming to the United States. It's different now. And this is not going to be a program about immigration, but it's different now in the way that those new immigrants today, the experiences they have versus the immigrants of the late 1800s and early 1900s. And within that, somewhere along the line has been lost, and it's been lost because we've gotten lazy, the ability and the recognition of challenge, but it's also been lost because our parents, who struggled so much, didn't want their children to struggle. So it's a paradoxical problem that we're facing, and one that, as we said, the solution really isn't in anything other than identifying and recognizing that it's a problem, and then people going out and saying we have to do something about it. And for men, to do something about it is to be present.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yep.
And in being present, there's a lot of different ways to do it. it's not a one size fits all, right?
Yes, sir.
You're present with your sons in a way that's different than so many other people, right?
Yeah.
And you were different with your son, as I was different with my sons. But the idea was being there and being readily available to them.
Right.
You know, you both gentlemen served. Thank you both for your service.
Our pleasure.
And you were away, but yet still had to find a way to be connected there and be there for your children.
Yes, sir.
And that had to be a challenge.
Yeah, and the good part is that I was surrounded by good folks. I had good leadership that helped along the way. But as I transitioned from really not practicing Protestant to becoming a Catholic, that was a huge shift where I was thankful to have had my parents and their influence in my life, but then this Catholic faith that came along that just opened the doors to so much more, enriched my faith, didn't take anything away, actually added more to. Those are the things that I look at and am very thankful for. And then the families being around.
Yes,
I mean,
right.
I think that you have an influence on your family by the people you associate with.
100%. Yes, sir.
And if you do those kind of things and make sure that you're in that right circle of friends, I mean, things happen even more so with the challenges that are going on.
Totally agree.
Yes, sir.
Totally agree.
You know, Mike alluded to this, and you did as well, Mark. Hard times produce hard men. Hard men produce soft times. Soft times produce soft men.
Right.
And then obviously soft men produce hard times, and hard times produce hard men. So I think about that, and I think also about adversity produces endurance, or begets endurance, and endurance begets hope. And I look at it, and I'll be honest, you're right. Like one of the points that you made, we talked about the challenges that have faced this nation and our people across the world for a long period of time. And there are some unique ones now, right? Because the challenges that we face as men, especially, are not removed. They are proximal, right? So they are as easy as picking up a phone, or one of our sons picking up a phone and being exposed to a host of issues and temptations that you and I didn't deal with in the same way.
Right.
Yes.
And so that's so critical. And I look at it, and the protective side of me wants to say, hey, I'm going to build a barricade around our house, and I'm going to keep my children locked inside. I'm going to keep the world at bay.
Dig a moat.
Yeah, with crocodiles, 100%. Yes, sir. And probably some concertina wire. So, but that doesn't prepare them adequately, and that's been a struggle for me, because my whole life is about protection and security, and so that's been very difficult for me. And my wife constantly reminds me of this. And then we talk about how to be a good father and a husband and a good man. And I will tell you, one of the most critical aspects of that is a wife who encourages you to be, and not just encourages you to be, but reminds you of the standard, right? Because there are plenty of times where my wife will say, hey, we need to pray the rosary. I'm like, and I'm exhausted or whatever. And I'm like, man, and I'm ticked, right? I'm not ticked that we have to say the rosary. Really, I'm ticked with myself that my wife in that moment held me to a standard that I wasn't holding myself to.
Amen.
And so she's so critical. And I look at it and I go, okay, it's easy for me. Physical challenges I've always embraced in my life, whether it was training or otherwise. I love those, man. And I've always pushed my sons. But if you look at it, physical challenges are often far easier to deal with than the mental and spiritual challenges, right? Especially spiritual challenges. And so what I find is that, boy, how do I translate over the course of my life my ability and my willingness to desire to deal with physical challenges and to overcome them? How does that translate into my ability to deal with spiritual challenges? And so I will bring in my family again, and I'll tell you, this was a great conversation that my wife and I had recently. We were talking about our youngest son, William. William has Down syndrome. He's 4 years old, and he is one of the baddest, toughest dudes I've ever met, right? He perseveres daily. And we were talking the other day, we were on a walk, and we were on this long walk. And partly in my mind, I'm thinking, it's going to wear the booger out. We're going to rack out when we get home. That's never the case. So I don't know why I keep holding on to that. But But we're going and we're going. And every once in a while throughout this walk, he'll plop down on the ground and he'll just stop right in the middle of the street. And he stops for a second and he's just sitting there. And I'm watching for cars in our neighborhood. And then he'll get up and he'll take off running again. And we were talking about the fact that part of that is due to him having low muscle tone as a child with Down syndrome, right? So what I think is easy may be just incredibly difficult for him. Everything's a physical challenge for him, but he always gets back up, right? I've never left him sitting on the street and gone home and eaten dinner. He's gotten up at some point and then progressed. We talk about relentless forward progress with him all the time because he doesn't backtrack. He may pause for a moment and he does everything in his time, but then he gets back up and he keeps going, right? And as we were talking about that, I'm like, what a great way to encapsulate what should be important to me, which is there are plenty of times, probably daily for all of us, we're like, oh, dear heavens. Yes. And I actually mean it. I'm like, dear heavens. Well, I can't do this. I just don't want to do it anymore. I'm exhausted, mentally, spiritually broken down, whatever. And if I don't get back up, man, we're done, right?
That's right.
It may feel easy. In the moment, you're like, I'm never going to do that. I'm done with that. Our lives have to be built around adversity and challenge. Challenge is what our lives were never intended to be easy.
Nope.
Never. Nope. I want them to be. I was like, man, I wish they were. And I'm like, boy, when I'm reminded of it, thank heavens they are not. A lobster that has to go through that incredibly painful process of shedding a shell so that they can actually grow, right? So they go through this painful morphine and they come out of it better and bigger.
Yeah.
Man, that's a great example. That's the way it should.
We're going to talk more about lobsters and fishing and a whole bunch of other topics as soon as we come back from this break. You're listening to St. Joseph Radio. The program is Man to Man. And thanks for listening.
Hi, this is Matt Loggeman with St. Joseph Radio with a great gift idea. A St. Benedict bracelet, a trendy accessory for men, women, and children that not only looks good on everyone's wrist, but is actually armor for the spiritual battlefield. This unique bracelet is handmade in Europe and contains 10 medals within the braided cord in the adult size and 7 medals in the children's size. On the front of each beautiful medal is St. Benedict holding a cross in his right hand, the object of his devotion. On the back of each medal is a cross. Surrounding the back of the medal and cross are the letters VRSN MV SMQ LIVB, in Latin reference which translates, "Begone, Satan. Never tempt me with your vanities. What you offer me is evil. Drink the poison yourself." And finally, located at the top is the word PAX, which means peace. All bracelets come packaged with an informational card and a St. Benedict blessing which your local priest can administer. This gift is for everyone you love and care about, including yourself. Available from St. Joseph Radio. Check the website at www.saintjosephradio.net.
St. Joseph Catholic Radio is proud to announce the launch of SJEN TV, the St. Joseph Evangelization Network. SJEN TV is a premier online Catholic broadcasting network providing quality Catholic programming 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have programming such as live studio interviews, St. Joe's Java speaker presentations, current Catholic issues, and the Pro-Life series. We're featuring the many talented speakers out of Orange County, California, and this Archdiocese of St. Louis, Missouri, including Professor John Gresham, Father James Mason, Karen Nokemper, Rick Hollerick, Bill Federer, and many more. To review the program list, go to sjen.tv or on Roku, SJEN TV. All this programming is free, and we are welcoming sponsorship of new programs. Find out more at sjen.tv.
It's an aggressor.
And welcome back, everyone. We are Man to Man. You're listening to St. Joseph Radio. Hey, if you would like a copy of this program today, or a prayer card, or any other kind of information from St. Joseph Evangelization Network, please drop us a line, 636-447-6000. That's 636-447-6000. Call and ask about this program or many others that air on a regular basis. So we've been having this conversation about manhood. We've been having more fun than we're probably allowed. This is not work. This is actually a lot of fun. And one of the things that I mentioned to Andrew before we took the break was we want to talk about an organization that you're piloting, I guess you would call it, called American Rangers. And I wonder if you couldn't tell us something about American Rangers and why did you even start, or how did you conceive the idea and why?
Yes, sir. Well, having 8 children, I was bored. I told my wife I need something to fill my time. So we started out.
You sleep like an hour a night?
Yeah, right. My wife laughs because the slightest movement, I'm up and right. I mean, bam, I'm like that. So the baby's like, he'll, stir in his sleep, and I'm locked and loaded and clearing the house, and she's like, "What is happening?" Yeah. So, there is such a dearth, such a gap in terms of what society brings to our young men, and how we fill that. And so we tried a couple things. We did the Boy Scouts for a while, and I had some issues that I wanted to address. And I had talked to some of the other dads at church with us and said, hey, let's take this a different route and let's make it really hardcore, right? And of course, all the dads are on board because, right, we're going to be the ones inflicting the pain necessarily. Our sons are going to be the recipients. So it's great. We're like, woo! And so we came up with this organization, the American Rangers, and I really wanted it to be analogous to what our main discussion has been today, which is challenge. How does challenge produce endurance and endurance hope and capability? And so everything about the American Rangers are built around principle and built around challenge. And how do we push forward in it? And so we've had our ups and downs, right? I mean, especially the pandemic hit and everybody locked down, and so that kind of impacted us in a big way because everything about the Rangers is very physical and proximal, right? So we're always very close, and we're grabbing and wrestling and doing hikes and that kind of stuff. But there's 2 major components to the physical activities of the Rangers. The first is something that we call the Ranger Initiation Program. We haven't done one in a couple of years, and I've had several people ask me recently, hey, we need to do another one where we take all the Rangers, especially new ones, and even down to the little guys, right, 6, 7 years old. And we had this massive obstacle course set up and diving through ice. The fathers line up with these big foam pads and whoop the living tar out of the boys as they run through the crucible, right? We call it the crucible. And it's they start off their kind of their Ranger path with this Ranger Initiation Program and this obstacle course, which tells them right off the bat, hey, the path forward is going to be difficult,
right? And
you have to persevere. And so when we do that, it's such a great opportunity. The one thing that's really stayed steady even throughout COVID and whatever has been something that we call the gauntlet. And it's really intended to be the culmination of the whole process, and not just for Rangers. Like over the last 2 years, we've had people, young men who were not Rangers, had not been in the program at all, but wanted to do this gauntlet with us. It's in a rite of passage, 24 hours. You start off on an evening and you go all the way through the next evening, and it's just misery, right? So hiking, doing all kinds of challenges, physical challenges, surviving in the wild, minimal food, and then leadership challenges that we put them through. And it's fantastic. I say it's fantastic, right? Because I'm running it. So I don't know that the boys feel that way until they're finished with it. But they all finish, and it's been amazing. Last year, I think we had 8 boys that did it with us, and they culminated, and the dads have this massive ceremony to celebrate it, and then they get these daggers, engraved daggers that they get to have for the rest of their lives, plus knowing that they did it. And I think that's one of the things that's absent for young men today for most young men, is any sort of rite of passage, any sort of initiation into manhood, right? Yes. Whether it's a faith-associated challenge and initiation or just any kind, physical, mental, anything. Yep. If a young man doesn't serve in the military, he really has to go out and seek that kind of challenge. And I will tell you, I follow a lot of people on Twitter and in social media that are very focused on what that looks like from a manhood perspective and how we achieve it. And because of that dearth and that gap, there are all these kind of cottage industries that have sprung up where they're offering at a price, significant cost, the opportunity for these young men and middle-aged men and older guys to come and just be bashed into the ground for 2 or 3 days, right? And so a lot of times it's really not a rite of passage or an initiation. It's really just kind of just being miserable for 2 days. But I think in their minds, they feel that if they go through that misery in a way that they've never experienced before, they've never had to do push-ups for hours straight, they've never been deprived of cold. I can't tell you the number of people in my life that I've experienced that have never had to work on a weekend after hours, work 24 hours straight, have operated on 1 to 0 hours, 0 to 1 hours of sleep, all of those things, right? And it boggles my mind, but it's good perspective for me because it just doesn't happen. And I think that because that doesn't happen, I think that our faith challenges become even greater, right? If you don't have that kind of challenge in your life. So
I would agree.
And that's one of the things I keep looking at is that because of my experience in the military, I am so thankful that I went through that. Not that that's the answer for everybody. But
no,
these
definitely
are the things
not.
I think that are important for young men to get across. How do I deal with being able to persevere? Yeah. I love that you said that word so many times, is that perseverance is something that I don't think that we naturally gravitate to. I think there's
Definitely
something that
not.
has to happen. Something that's got to.
You have to choose it.
Right. And there's
it.
sometimes that an event will choose you.
Yes, sir. Yep. But you can also not persevere in that event. Yeah. You can make the decision willfully to fall down, lie down, never get back up, right? So
I think perseverance is also something that our culture tries to eliminate.
100%.
Well, who wants to suffer, right? Nobody wants to suffer.
So,
exactly, brother.
Helicopter parents or whatever name you want to give that ideal, the truth is somehow we've come to this idea that if you suffer, it's really bad.
Right. Something went wrong, you had to suffer.
Exactly. So we have to do everything we can to eliminate even the slightest possibility that you may suffer.
Right.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of suffering. There's physical suffering.
Sure.
But we're trying to eliminate every aspect of it the point where you're hearing now employers saying that they have brand new employees that come in and within the first week complain because they haven't been promoted. I actually read an article about that recently. Complain because they weren't invited into the boardroom for an executive meeting. Yeah. Because it's suffering. And it's really interesting. I heard a story about a year ago about a conference where young people in a business conference were exchanging stories about how unfair the work world was. And this one young woman got up and said that her boss had asked her to do a presentation at a high-level management meeting. And she did the presentation, and when it was done, as they were leaving the room, her boss said to her, "Great job." And she told the audience how crushing that was, because her thought was, great job? Not perfect? She said this in a room full of business executives. So that mindset is so dangerous. And it's so simple to really teach how to persevere. It doesn't have to be with crippling physical pain.
That's a great point. Yes, sir.
But to be able to say to your son, and we're talking man to man, so yes, your daughters too, but to be able to say like, hey, this is hard, but you have to do it. Yeah. We can't be afraid to say that to our young men.
Right. And on the other side of that, every time we talk about perseverance, we don't want to short circuit that because it's so important to understand what's on the other side.
That's right.
You can't get here to there without going through this.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, you want to talk about, everybody can see the dagger.
Yeah.
I want the dagger.
That's right.
But you got to go through this to get there.
That's right.
That's a whole different mentality versus I want this now and I don't want to deal with any of the stuff in the middle.
By the way, it parallels. I see heaven. I want to get to heaven.
Yeah. But I don't want to do the stuff.
But I don't want to do the stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. No hard work.
Right. You know, just ship me there.
That's right. Is that possible? We're going to take a little detour on theology right now. What's really interesting, one of the primary takeaways that I had from the military was something that we call task, condition, and standards. And as a military member, you're assigned a task. Hey, go do this, clean up this, take this objective, whatever it is. Here are the conditions. You're going to be operating in a field environment or a motor pool, and you're going to have these tools and this number of people. And here are the standards. You'll do it perfectly. You'll make sure everything's clean. You'll make sure everything's secure, whatever it is, right? It's very clearly defined. And it's not that they tell you exactly how to do it, but you pretty well understand what the expectation is when you go into it. And I think of all the times, that story, boy, what a great allegory for kind of, again, how our society is right now, because I think of all the times where the praise that I received was, you didn't screw up. Yes, right? And that was satisfactory enough for me to sleep well at night, knowing that, hey, I wasn't going to be UCMJ'd or go to prison or do something else. But I think that the idea, both of you have alluded to it so well, when we talk about, we have moved into a time in our society, in our history, where our parents, and I think us, don't want our children to be uncomfortable or inconvenienced.
Absolutely.
Not that we say that, right? But we look maybe at our lives and our parents' lives, grandparents' lives, the Great Wars, all that kind of stuff, and we choose sometimes comfort for them. And so it's always an act of the will as a parent, and specifically as a father with sons, and I will defer to my wife and give her credit. There are times where I'm like, oh, somebody's going to die if you parachute off our roof with that garbage bag or have their legs broken. And my wife will be, hey, you did that too. I'm like, oh, but I want them to be safe, right? But it's really allowing them to experience that pain themselves, come up with a good risk management process that they can apply the rest of their lives, and then understand, I never want to do that again. Or, man, that was pretty cool. I survived. Maybe I can do it again. But we don't do that at all. Every child that steps onto a field gets a ribbon or a bat. We always talk about it, right?
Ooh, yes.
Oh, man, just everybody, you don't earn anything. You just are given it.
That's right.
And boy, does that translate into the world of employment big time right now. I see that constantly. I'm like, man, I have fought for years to be where I am. Lots of experience, lots of training, lots of education. And I look at some of these young people that walk in and they instantly place themselves in parallel to me.
On par. Yes, that's right.
On par. Yes. And I don't want to dismiss, Timothy says, hey, don't dismiss the young, or don't be allowed to be dismissed as a young person. But at the same time, I'm a big believer. I developed kind of this model that I call follow, learn, lead, teach. So follow, learn, lead, teach. As a young person, we should follow. We should learn from the people around us, our elders, gain experience. Hopefully that transitions then into a point where we are leaders and we are teaching our young people.
Yes.
And that model just doesn't apply to them. It applies to me, right? I'm constantly in that FLLT circle where I'm always learning. I'm learning from my children. I'm learning from people around me. I'm learning from you guys today.
If we're not doing
constantly
that,
cyclical like that.
Right.
yeah.
If we're not doing it, we're dead spiritually, mentally, emotionally,
Exactly.
physically.
Definitely not.
What's the point, man? We're not being challenged. I see a lot of guys, man, people ask me all the time, Andrew, you're going to retire. When are you going to retire? Like, well, I have a 4-year-old, so
You're right.
I would say when the good Lord calls me home.
Right.
But I know a lot of people that do retire, and it's up, right? And I always think to myself, man, if I retired every single day, I would be out fishing. And I mean that. A lot of people are like, oh, you're ridiculous. Part of me goes 100%, 24/7. I will be on a lake. Obviously, I can't do that. But I say that if I ever got to that, what would there be about life outside of the challenge of catching a big largemouth? What would there be about life that was worth living beyond, okay, I catch a fish every once in a while, right? No love, no hope, no watching my children grow, none of that stuff, no enjoying time with my life. No purpose. None.
It's I'm the only one at the table here who is retired, and I would tell you that is a huge challenge that people have facing retirement. Now, it's one thing when you're
with it. What do you do?
Well, first of all, when you're in your 30s and you're talking about retiring, the dream is to be on the lake fishing because you don't really know any better. Right. As you get older, you come to realize that's probably not a realistic possibility for a number of reasons, right? As you get closer to retirement, first of all, my recommendation is, if you're in that state, start talking to people who are already retired. Yep, learn from their experiences, and good and bad, right? But the big thing is to start to think about, what's my legacy? What is it that I want? And my legacy is my purpose. Like, I'm not talking about a plaque or, but God's given this to me. He's brought me to this point where he's even allowed me to choose to retire. Now, what do I want to do with what God's given me, the life experiences that he's given to me? Can I give them back to the world? Can I can they be used within the family, in the community? What can I do with the talents and grace that God has given to me that would give him glory in my retirement?
Right.
And to be willing and open to do that. And by the way, there's still days I fished a couple of days ago. Nice. You could still do that, but that's not your purpose.
Right, exactly.
You know,
it's not your why.
And as a dad, as a husband, you're always going to be third. So the first two purposes are God and your family. And then when you get past that, if you will, that's when you can say, okay, I have something. What can I do with it? You're still trying to give it. You're trying to direct it towards someone to make the world or the community a better place in whatever level that you can. So, retirement is fun, but it's fun because it's purposeful, and you're probably more connected to that when you're working day to day, 40 hours a week.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, where am I in my career? What am I going to be?
And I think it's really important that you said prepare for that, because a lot of people have an ideal, but then how do you actually execute that is a whole different thing. And then when you do start executing it and you haven't prepared well, you're going to fall short, and then you got crisis.
Yeah. I think too, it goes to because we live in a world of immediate gratification, whether it's in terms of accomplishment or access or Amazon having something on your doorstep right after you hit send, all of those things. I don't even know that the concept of retirement or overall accomplishment and achievement, which should be tied to your why, exists in the minds of a lot of young people today, right? Yep. So I think, and it goes right back to our conversation on perseverance, I think we live more than ever, without waxing philosophical, I think we live in a nihilistic society.
Yes.
For these young people, they don't see, and I'll tell you what, the mainstream media, our leaders, everyone around them is telling them, yeah, you should be nihilistic. There is no point, whether the economy is going to crash, whether an asteroid's hitting, whether Russians are coming, whatever it is, they don't see the end. And that translates into their inability, their blindness to the end being heaven.
Yes.
And it translates into a very self-centered focus right now. Hey, what's the point? I'm just going to live through the now. And then why persevere? Why deal with adversity? Why deal with challenge? Because I just want to be comfortable in the now and have things be convenient for me. So
you mentioned purpose, or we mentioned purpose, and it leads me to ask you about your T-shirt. Team Iron Will.
I want to call it out before one of these guys goes, it has a hole in the middle. Because nobody told me we were going to be on TV today. So I just wanted the world to know not all my shirts look like this. So Team Iron Will is an organization. When William was born, our youngest, my wife and I have always, I think, had it on our hearts to advocate for the most vulnerable in society, from the preborn all the way through end-of-life issues, and to try and do something about that, right? Relentless forward progress, always kinetic in our advocacy and in our living. And Team Iron Will kind of ended up being the extension of that. Once we had William, we realized, man, we can never advocate enough for the most vulnerable, especially those people with Down syndrome and things like that are belittled by the world, ignored by the world, demeaned, compartmentalized. And so what we did with William, we looked at him. One of the things that we've experienced, kind of a challenge for us, was getting him access to therapy. We were blessed to have the state provide some great services. We were blessed to have charities provide that. Looked at the access to therapy, tools, toys, and development options. And we managed to kind of hack our way through it, especially my wife, who's like an expert on all things Down syndrome and getting education and support now. A lot of people don't have that opportunity. And there are some major gaps and seams in how the states and other organizations and kind of the community as a whole provides those. And so we looked at it and we said, man, we want to be able to provide equipment to families that are maybe in need or are facing challenges. They don't have to be in poverty. We all face financial challenges and otherwise. How do we get equipment to them? How do we get them caring and support and therapy and access to it? And so we started Team Iron Will because we called him Iron Will. Like I talk about that relentless forward progress. He's so tough. And so we're like, oh man, Team Iron Will, like, convey this kind of sense of hardcoreness and whatever. And it really took off. My wife has a fantastic presence on Instagram. She does a lot of education. People come to her constantly because she hacks her way through, right? She's so, one of the things in the military we talk about is train to standard, not to time. And so, hey, listen, if I say, Mark, you have 30 minutes to be proficient in this task, and you're like, oh my goodness, that's ridiculous. I say, Mark, I want you to be proficient in this task. You're like, great, it's going to take me possibly a year. Like, I don't care. I want you to be the best expert. My wife really embodied that with William, and she's kind of pushed that out to the world and said, listen, he'll get where he's going in his own time. He is going to walk, but it's going to be in his time. It's not going to be in the world's time. It's going to be in his time. And he was in a walker for a while. And now that dude runs, right? Like,
wow.
I drive in a car next to him. It's like Rocky or something, because I'm just like, he's like, turn the tunes up, Dad. And I just drive next to him while he runs because he's so fast and powerful. And it's so great to watch that progression, that relentless forward progress. And so we took all of that, and she pushes out on Instagram. I push it out on Twitter. I have a pretty significant following among the military and law enforcement community and security and a lot of people kind of in that. And so they kind of see it in a different light, right? Because they love the pushing through adversity, challenges, technically, tactically proficient. They love that aspect of him, you know? And I'm like, here he is, low calling through the backyard, cicadas landing on his head. And they're like, yeah. Not that he does that every night, but if he's motivated to do it, I let him do it. So we've been able to really use those forums to advocate for the most vulnerable among us and to bring light to personhood. How do we not only recognize personhood, the personhood of every individual, no matter what their circumstances are. They don't have to be neurotypical. They don't have to be categorized by the world. And then how do we get them help and assistance to reach their God-given potential? That's our mission statement. Wow. How do we help them reach their God-given potential?
Yeah, that is so good.
And it's, I'll tell you what, it's amazing. Just the outreach from people and how much it has energized people across the world to reach out. And we're like, man, and especially me, right? I'm like, yeah, I don't know, Jack, but my wife's awesome. You can ask her. I'll make cool videos with William climbing over obstacles. So that's my contribution.
And I'm sure he loves doing that.
He does. Yeah, he's tough. He's tough.
Yeah.
So if you go to teamironwill.org, there's a great video up there. It's got some hardcore music to it. And then there's all the resources, how to reach out to us, how to get help. We just started something called our medical advocacy team. We have a fantastic doctor out of Virginia who also has a daughter with Down syndrome. And she is now teaching the community, how do you advocate for your child at any age in the medical community to make sure they're not disregarded and dismissed and that they get the care necessary, which is a huge gap as well. So
that's just amazing.
There's a lot together there.
Yes, it really, you're to be commended, you and your wife. It's something so much needed.
Yes, sir.
Is the recognition of the beauty that a soul like William brings into a family.
Yes, sir.
You know, instead we look at it as it's a horrible curse, you know,
right.
And I feel bad for you. And it's almost like, no, actually, in a way, I'm really so happy for you.
Yes, sir.
You get to experience a joy that most of us don't.
Yeah, every day. Walk in and that little dude's like, Dad! Comes running, or if he's downstairs, he'll hear the door close and he starts yelling, Dad. And the ridiculousness of the world that I've dealt with all day just kind of slides away. You know, as he and my family kind of surround me and
I'm sure the rest of the family, your children have united behind him, and I'm
they're
sure he's
amazing.
Taught them lessons that they didn't know about themselves.
Having all those older brothers, his older sister will be some sort of therapist or teacher because she is relentless in how she educates him, and she does not allow him to rest, right? So he's like, you know, she'll hold up a flashcard and say, what is this? And he's like, cat. And it's a dog. She's like, not even close, William. Try again, right? And she's only 8, but she's amazing.
She takes after her dad.
She's much more down. And then all those older boys, boy, he hits a ball like crazy. They walk through a room, they grab him, and they engage, and it's incredible. They have developed him. So,
well, Andrew Daub, thank you so much for being on the program. This has been a delightful hour. I hope you all enjoyed as much as we did. And Mr. Hayworth, thanks again, our co-host.
Thank you.
This is Man to Man, and you've been listening to St. Joseph Radio, coming to you from St. Louis, Missouri, the Rome of the West. Thank you, and have a great day.
Listening to St. Joseph Radio presents from the Rome of the West, St. Louis, Missouri. If you would like to join us in our evangelization efforts, you can order a copy of today's broadcast or any of our past programs by visiting us on our website, stjosephradio.net. That's SAINT, josephradio.net. Or call us 636-447-6000. It's all at your fingertips to help us evangelize the world, bringing the good news of Christ to everyone you meet and change one soul at a time. Thank you for your prayers and support. Until next time, may God bless you and your family. This has been a presentation of St. Joseph Radio Presents.